Let's talk about personal debts here in the United States. They're at an all-time high. That is, American families have borrowed more money now than at any time in the history of the United States. Almost every family carries a lot of debt, and that debt costs a lot, not only in the interest you have to pay and the portion you have to repay all the time, but also in the anxiety and the tension and the lost opportunities that worrying about and paying off your debts involve. So let's first ask the question, why did this happen? Why in the last 25 years did debts go crazy in a way they never had before in the United States? Did we suddenly change our behavior and attitudes? I don't think so. In fact, economics shows us the reason real quickly. Over the previous 150 years, before around the 1970s, Americans had enjoyed a rising standard of living because they were paid higher wages. Corporations were doing very well. There weren't enough workers around, so to get workers to come, often from other countries, and to get workers to stay in jobs, you had to pay them more every year, even if it was a little, but it grew. And people could afford a rising standard of living out of their wages. In the 1970s, that stopped. American corporations moved their jobs abroad. American corporations substituted computers for people. Women looking for an equal position with men started working in jobs much more than they had before. And for all these reasons, employers didn't have to pay rising wages anymore, and they took advantage of that situation and stopped. The real wage, that is the money you earn per hour of work, today in the United States, 2011, is about what it was in the middle of the 1970s. Wages stopped going up. But meanwhile, the hopes of the American people to enjoy the American dream, to give their kids a college education, to live in a decent way, to be able to take a vacation, all those things kept going. And the costs of them kept rising. Not only that, producers in America, corporations, pumped up the advertising, telling everybody how they ought to live, what a good standard of living, what a successful American life meant. Moreover, there was no discussion in America about what it meant and whether it was legitimate for corporations to take advantage of the labor market and not raise wages the way they had. Even though the workers were becoming more productive, they didn't get any more. We had no public discussion about it. We had no policy about it. So every American family handled it individually. And one of the things American families did was to borrow money, to keep up with the American dream, to provide for their kids, the promises they had made. They borrowed money. And they borrowed in a way they had never done before. And for the last 25 years, that's how the American economy was sustained, by borrowed money used by people who no longer had rising wages to pay for it. Now the American people are tapped out. Their wages haven't gone up, and they can't borrow anymore because they can't sustain the debts they already have. Now the moment of truth has arrived that got postponed from the 1970s. And here's what's at stake. If we don't either raise the wages of American workers or bring down their debt in some national social way, the American consumer cannot grow. And that means that American corporations, when this is already happening, are looking more and more to the rest of the world for their growth in the future. They may be based in the United States, but more and more they produce out of the United States, and more their growing markets are out of the United States. And if their markets are elsewhere, and if their workers are elsewhere, what they care about the American people is less and less. They don't care to pay the taxes to sustain the American economy. They're letting it go. And unless the people do something to change this, we are in a period of long-term economic decline. And one of the features of that decline is the unwillingness to deal with the basic wage patterns in this country and the debt levels that have come out of them. That is an urgent crisis.